Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. And for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's comedian Leo Kearse and former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire. Before we get started, though, let's get our latest news headlines.
Thanks, Nana. It's just gone 4 o'clock. I'm Simon Pusey in the GB newsroom. Top Ukrainian military officials have reportedly been forced into a bomb shelter after coming under a shelling attack. Kiev has accused Russia of repeatedly violating a ceasefire. New video released by the Ukrainian Armed Forces and border guards shows an attack at a checkpoint near the eastern town of Luhansk. The country also reported the death of a soldier, saying he was killed in a shelling by pro-Russian separatists. The West says the attacks are part of a pretext to invade the country. The Ukraine crisis is dominating the agenda at the Munich Security Conference. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has warned the world can't underestimate what's at stake if Russia invades Ukraine. He told leaders it's vital that any violent act of aggression by President Putin fails.
If Ukraine is overrun by brute force, I fail to see how a country encompassing nearly 250,000 square miles, the biggest nation in Europe apart from Russia itself, could then be held down and subjugated forever. After a generation of freedom, we're now staring at a generation of bloodshed and misery. I believe that Russia would have absolutely nothing to gain from this catastrophic venture and everything to lose.
The Prime Minister later spoke to Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, reiterating the UK's unequivocal support for the country's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Boris Johnson also agreed with the US assessment that Russia's president has made up his mind to attack the capital, Kiev.
I think that certainly things are in motion, but the question is whether it can all be pulled back and whether the president of Russia is still able to call this operation off. I think that possibility must logically still exist, and therefore I think it's absolutely vital that we have a path of dialogue.
Also speaking in Munich, US Vice President Kamala Harris said Russia will suffer unprecedented financial costs if it invades Ukraine.
And we will target those who are complicit and those who aid and abet this unprovoked invasion. Make no mistake, the imposition of these sweeping and coordinated measures will inflict great damage on those who must be held accountable.
Insurers say the clean-up bill after Storm Eunice could exceed £300 million. Yellow weather warnings for heavy snow are still in place for Yorkshire and Lancashire, and more than 200,000 homes are still without power after yesterday's extreme conditions. Record-breaking winds killed at least 4 people, damaged buildings and brought down trees blocking lines across the rail network. Meteorologist John Hammond says there's more bad weather to come.
The very worst is over. We're not going to see gusts as high as we saw yesterday, but we're in for a rough ride over the next few days, that is for sure. What we really want, of course, is prolonged calm weather, but that's not really what we're going to get. We are going to see some rain pushing in from the west through today, but the winds, probably more importantly, are going to pick up yet again.
Downing Street says the Prime Minister has handed in his Met Police questionnaire regarding allegations of parties held in Downing Street during lockdown. Operation Hillman is looking into whether COVID restrictions were broken at number 10 and across Whitehall over the last 2 years. The NHS is to stop taking cash from the gambling industry for the treatment of people suffering addiction. NHS England says the decision had been heavily influenced by patients who are uncomfortable about using services paid for by the industry, a view that has also been echoed by medics. More than 100 people have been arrested in Canada after 3 weeks of protest against the country's COVID restrictions. Lorry drivers who brought the city of Ottawa to a standstill were removed from the capital by police. They were arrested and detained on mischief charges. Nearly 24 vehicles were also towed away, including those blocking one of the city's major roads. Ottawa police say one officer suffered a minor injury, but no protesters were hurt. And Team GB has finally won a medal at the Winter Olympics, with the men's curling team taking silver. They lost to Sweden 5-4 in a nail-biting final in Beijing. The women's team is also in the final and will play Japan early tomorrow morning. The royal family tweeted their support, saying Great Britain's journey has been fantastic to watch and a great achievement. This is B at GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now let's return to Nana Akua.
So before we get started, good afternoon. If you've just tuned in, by the way, it's coming up to 6 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. So before we get stuck into the debate, let's have a look at what else is on the way. So after 5 o'clock this afternoon, I'll be sitting down for my difficult conversation as we look at the judgment women often get for being so-called geriatric mums. I mean, I'm apparently one of those. This week saw the striking image of Naomi Campbell at the age of 51 on the front cover of Vogue, holding her 9-month-old daughter. I don't know whether she actually carried the baby. As she carried it. Did she get somebody else to carry it? It'd be very sensible if she did. But being an older mum myself, I'll sit down with another mum who's a so-called geriatric parent as well, to share our experience of having a child later in life. Then we've got our Great British Debate, which is in this hour. She's not known for mincing her words. No, it's not me. But this week, the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, Angela Rayner, sparked controversy as she claimed we should shoot your terrorists and ask questions later. It's not the first time she's been hardlined in her interpretation of Labour policy. So I'm asking, will talking tough save the Labour Party? And we've got some live music for you at the end of the show to get your Saturday evening off to the perfect start.
Maybe something simple like breakfast for dinner tonight.
That's Rosie Smith. She'll perform her new single, Breakfast for Dinner, at the end of the show. I think I had breakfast for dinner. Yeah. So tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk, or why not tweet me at gbnews. But we start this hour by getting some reaction to the Prime Minister Boris Johnson's speech to world leaders at the Munich Security Conference in Germany. The UK Prime Minister says that any invasion of Ukraine by Russia would echo around the world, and is just a snippet of an extremely strongly worded speech earlier.
If Ukraine is overrun by brute force, I fail to see how a country encompassing nearly 250,000 square miles, the biggest nation in Europe apart from Russia itself, could then be held down and subjugated forever. After a generation of freedom, we're now staring at a generation of bloodshed and misery. I believe that Russia would have absolutely nothing to gain from this catastrophic venture and everything to lose.
So Western nations have warned that Russia could invade Ukraine imminently, with over 130,000 of its troops near the border. So let's get some reaction to that speech with Sir Andrew Wood. He's the former British ambassador to Russia. Andrew, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. Now, these are very strong words from our Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Were you surprised?
No, I think they're exactly the words that should have been said. It's a moment of almost lunacy in part of Russia, even to think about it.
Because it seems to be that this would be potentially, well, it'll be like a third world war. Do you think that Putin will actually listen to what Boris has said, or do you feel that he's just going to disregard everything as he seems to be doing?
I think he disregards everything that is said. He's made up his mind. I think it's going to be a third world war, literally. It will be a very hot beginning to a new Cold War, more like. What he's trying to do is to seize control of Ukraine. He has no reason whatsoever, let alone any right, to even attempt such a thing. And I do not think that the Russian people, who is different, one has to distinguish between the people and their rulers, will gain anything from it whatsoever.
Seems a very odd thing. I mean, it's very old school, isn't it? Just going in and annexing another nation in that way. It doesn't really make much sense, especially politically in terms of the pipeline as well. I know Germany are agreeing that they may look to pull the plug on any of that. And earlier, Boris met Ukraine president, who later said that they had agreed joint next steps and remained united in the pursuit of de-escalation and diplomacy. How important do you think the relationship is between Boris and the Ukrainian leader?
I think it's important because having a strong voice from the West helps the Ukrainians and also the Poles and the Baltic countries and others who are direct neighbours of Russia. I think you were absolutely right just now to talk about it going to an old style. This is a very Stalinist style and a very Soviet style. Soviet Union invaded Czechoslovakia, Hungary. They invaded East Germany, which is when they had to hold it down. And eventually these things completely failed. I don't see that this is going to help Russia to, I was almost going to say grow up, so I'll say grow up, and become a real country which can evolve into a much better country for all its inhabitants. It's really foolish.
And very briefly, do you feel an invasion is inevitable?
It's not inevitable, but they wouldn't stoke up things like they're doing in the eastern part of Ukraine, giving, we called it a false flag. But it is totally false. I can't imagine anyone in their right mind in Ukraine suddenly attacking Russia and going through an area of Ukraine, but into Russia, where there are 150,000 troops facing them. That's just lunatic. They're not going to do it.
Well, it will, obviously will. This is the top story today, and of course throughout the world, so we'll keep our eye on it. Sir Andrew Wood, thank you very much for talking to me this afternoon. That's Sir Andrew Wood. He's a former British ambassador to Russia. Good afternoon. So if you've just tuned in, you're with me, Nana Akua, on GB News, on TV, on digital and online. So let's face it, we are a nation obsessed with the weather. I mean, this country literally grinds to a halt. Who can forget the great storms of 1987 after forecaster Michael Fish infamously told the nation, "Don't worry, there isn't a hurricane on the way." How wrong can you be? The storm claimed 18 lives. Very seriously, it flattened 15 million trees and caused around about £1.5 billion worth of damage. And the words, "Don't worry, there isn't a hurricane on the way," must haunt him every single day. And yesterday's rare red weather warning, I didn't say that in practice, but that's quite tricky to say. It meant that GB News reporters were on high alert, and it was hilarious.
The worst of the storm is far from over. People have got sandbags still in front of their houses just in case some of the waves, like this one, has just hit us now. That could happen again later today. And
now, of course, it is that danger to life with flying debris. Just behind me, there's a bandstand where sheets of metal have just come off and flown in the other direction. We're keeping safe and keeping out of the way of it.
Now, sheltering from the wind, it has strengthened significantly in the last few minutes. Must be gusts approaching 100 miles an hour, although, of course, I can't verify.
Very stressful for families here, considering they've only just got the power back on from Storm Dudley, and they're still recovering from Storm Owen. It is very, very strong. I think there'll be a lot of damage from this wind power overnight. We'll keep you posted.
No, I don't want to make light of it completely because a few people did lose their lives and it is still very bad. In some places, it's not over. I mean, there were record-breaking winds, 190,000 homes at least without power, 500 flights were cancelled and they are expecting up to £350 million worth in insurance payouts. But there is a macabre sense of humour that I love about the British.
Not doing much about it, especially when everyone's electricity went off. I was off for 4 days and I didn't do anything. I have a child as well. Yeah.
So it's been difficult for people around here?
It has. I used to live in Manchester, you see, so it's been completely different coming up to here. Because I hardly got any snow and I came here and I was blocked in for 4 days.
I was expecting worse. Wind and snow, but I mean, I don't know if there's more to come. So I'm just clearing the way for the carers.
Town hall always gets the worst of it, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
They just get on with it. They just do. It's just a town law thing. We just get on with it. We're used to it. We live so high up.
We've made a mountain out of a molehill. All them down south's getting it bad and we're getting it canny. It's just nothing.
But apparently we'd better get used to it because by all accounts the climate doomsayers are blaming it on global warming. I'll leave you with more weather. Right, so let's get started. Welcome again to my panel. Former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire and comedian Leo Kearse. Right, well, welcome on board, guys. Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Scarlett, on a Saturday. It's nice, isn't it?
Yes.
I like Saturdays. Saturdays are great days, aren't they? So, Scarlett, talk to me then. The weather. Did it do anything to you? Was there any impact?
I mean, I do think that the British do love weather. I mean, there is no question. I remember when I was working in a newsroom and there was a New Zealand guy being the news editor and he refused to do weather stories, just saying, it's winter, it snows. And you'd go, no, this is Britain. We really care about it. I mean, one has to say that all the weather warnings probably saved some lives. Yeah. I mean, you know, the hurricane did take 18 yesterday. I mean, I know 4 is terrible, but it wasn't that bad. A lot of people stayed home. And, I mean, a lot of people had their lives disrupted, but that was all. So I think we can always go over the top, and we love going over the top with weather, whether it's sizzling hot or rain pouring. But, I mean, you know, we're British.
Fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's fair enough.
Because you're Scottish, you're used to this, you're like...
Yeah, I mean, I look at you soft Southerners, a bit of wind, you're all like, oh my God, a shrub has blown over in my garden. You know, no, you just need to duffel up your duffel coat and get on with it. Yeah, I was out yesterday. It was really windy. It was really windy, which is quite exciting.
But you're quite tall, so it'll affect you more.
Yeah, and also, well, I've got large feet, so I'm surprisingly stable for somebody who's 6'6" in high winds. But yeah, I had to not do any shows last night because I thought there's already been enough damage to roofs. You don't want me taking the roof off another venue.
Very good, yeah.
He's a comedian.
Yes, he's a very funny Leo. But then I've heard people saying things like, yeah, but now it's another lockdown, isn't it? Another form of lockdown, keeping you in your homes, and you have to order stuff. And I mean, there is that perception, but to be fair, it could, you know, what do you think?
And this is the thing. So people have genuinely been talking about having a curfew, having a stay-at-home order for the weather. And it's like we can look out the window and see if we can go outside or not. You know, we don't need to be told by the government. And also, people who say we should have these stay-at-home orders, you can stay at home and order, you know, Deliveroo or Getty or whatever it is, order stuff to your house. What about the poor guys bringing the stuff, you know, riding their bikes with the pizza on the back, getting blown all over the road? I mean, it shows...
Rather them than you.
It shows how the window of acceptable government intervention has moved over since we saw, you know, people never thought lockdown would be acceptable in the UK, and actually we lapped it up. And it also shows...
I don't agree with that.
It also shows we've got a two-tier society where if you're rich enough, you can work from home, you can stay safe at home, and then all the poor guys delivering your pizza have to go out and risk their lives, risk COVID. Risk getting a tree on their head.
I never thought that that anything of that sort. I thought it's fair enough. You know, lockdown. I didn't think that people wouldn't go out. I could understand why people wouldn't go out, especially in the first wave. Because when I came out of my house, I was going to the studio, so I was recording stuff. I was working for a radio station, and I had to be there. And I remember coming out, and it was like something out of 28 Days Later. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're coming to get me. It was actually quite frightening.
Is that because British people are like zombies?
Well, it wasn't like that last night. So yesterday, like you, I went. I mean, you know, I had a hospital appointment. I was amazed. The hospital was full. Everybody. I mean, all the workers were there, doing their business. No fuss, no nothing. And then last night, you know, my millennial lodger had a dinner party. They all turned up. Nobody made a fuss. I went down the road to escape it for a couple of hours. And this morning she got up and said, oh, my God, you know, I have to have a takeaway, a delivered McDonald's. I mean, that's... It is...
The millennials.
Millennials. Honestly, I just love them.
Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts? Did the weather affect you? Would love to hear your take on it. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. And after the break, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, will talking tough save the Labour Party? The Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, Angela Rayner, sparked controversy this week as she claimed we should shoot your terrorists and ask questions later. So I'm asking, will talking tough save them? Get your thoughts in. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tell me what you think. You can also tweet me at GBNews, and there's a poll up right now asking that question, will talking tough save the Labour Party? Cast your vote now. But first, guess what? It's the weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking a little drier and calmer, but only for a short while. Let's take a look at the details. Cloud will already begin to increase across southwest England this evening, with outbreaks of rain developing, winds easing for a few hours. Mild this evening with temperatures of 10 degrees Celsius. It will be drier this evening across the southeast and London, with the winds easing too, temperatures falling away over the coming hours. Over to Wales, and after a quiet few hours, cloud and rain will begin to move back in from the west. Winds will also increase. Turning chilly for a time this evening across the Midlands, with clear skies over Birmingham. Winds will fall light ahead of more unsettled weather moving in tonight. Temperatures hovering around 4 degrees Celsius. Any lingering rain, sleet and snow will soon clear away from northern England to leave a dry evening. Temperatures tumbling with some patchy frost and ice forming ahead of further rain tonight. Frost and ice also for a time across eastern Scotland, whilst in the west we could see cloud and rain beginning to move in from the Atlantic. Winds also increasing along the coasts. Turning increasingly wet across Northern Ireland this evening, with Belfast holding on to the driest weather for longest. Winds increasing from the west too, but staying on the mild side. Wet and windy weather with then sweep across the whole country as we go through tonight. Gales developing by morning, and that is how the weather is shaping up overnight and into tomorrow morning.
Join me, Gloria De Piero, Monday to Thursday at noon for The Briefing. We go to the parts of Parliament that you won't see elsewhere. Plus, there's exclusive interviews with MPs from all parties.
But quite often, they paper over the real truth. Why does a working class lad like you join the Tories?
That's a good question.
Don't miss it. Monday to Thursdays at noon on GB News.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions that you'd ask,
so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's fast approaching 25 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. You're either listening on digital radio, watching on TV or online. And joining me now, my panel, I've got Leo Curse and also Scarlett joining me too. Right, so you can also watch us on YouTube if you fancy that and subscribe to GB News. Right, so it's time for our Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, will Talking Tough save the Labour Party? The Deputy Leader, Angela Rayner, sparked controversy this week after saying, on things like law and order, I'm quite hard line. I am like, shoot your terrorists and ask questions second. Sorry, is that the most controversial thing I've ever said? Not really, Angela. I think I can remember the Tory scum one, which I think was slightly worse. In response to the comments, Labour's former Shadow Home Secretary Diane Abbott and the Momentum Group, which supported Jeremy Corbyn, someone who had been very vocal in his opinion of the shoot-to-kill policies, were hugely critical of Ms Rayner. But some are arguing Talking Tough might be the way of gaining support for the party. So I'm asking, will Talking Tough save them? What do you think? Let's start by looking at the political reaction to her comments. And I'm joined by Professor of Political Marketing at the University of Leicester, Paul Baines. Paul, so there's Angela again. She's talking tough. Do you think that this will sort of win over voters, this kind of stance?
I think it's an attempt to come across as a sort of woman of the people, really. Whether I'm not sure she planned her comment as much as she might have liked to have done. I think she shoots from the hip in that sense and just says what she thinks. But she probably thinks that by speaking in that way that she's coming across better and that people will be more likely to like her and therefore the Labour Party. So talking tough on law and order, of course, is an attempt to bring up the ratings to some extent also, but I don't think she planned it.
It seems like it's sort of slightly backfiring on her though, because people are sort of likening it and coming back to her comments about Tory scum. I mean, her previous comments, she said, we cannot get any worse than a bunch of scum, homophobic, racist, misogynistic, absolute vile, banana republic, vile, nasty, Etonian piece of scum. And she actually said with that one that she'd held back a little bit. I mean, that to me is really actually makes me turn my back on it. But I mean, what do you make of that?
Well, I think that was a chance. She was throwing red meat, really, to the hard left, I think. I mean, they've got a very difficult balancing act, leadership of the Labour Party, because they've still got a fairly sizable group of people in its membership who are, who are strong, hard left in the sense of Jeremy Corbyn supporting. And at the same time, they've got an electorate that has clearly shown that they are that they've shifted to the right. And whilst that hasn't been a complete shift to the right, although they've obviously elected Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party to government, it has been a shift nevertheless. And so I think what they're trying to do is to effect a shift to the centre, really, to some extent, and but at the moment their shift is insufficient, and they'll have to achieve a fairly significant shift. In a sense, Boris Johnson won quite a large proportion of the working class, and what they have to do is maintain keep the working class, but at the same time take on a fairly sizable chunk of the middle class. In other words, they have to do the opposite of what the Conservatives have done.
It's a bit of a dichotomy, really, because you've got a leader of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, who considers his words so carefully that he says nothing, and you've got someone who doesn't consider their words at all.
It reminds me a lot of Tony Blair and John Prescott. You had John Prescott who, famously thumped somebody and said exactly what he liked. And, of course, Tony Blair, who was the epitome of someone who spoke very carefully and very measuredly. And in a sense, they both worked. And it's not dissimilar, this, because whereas Prescott sort of looked after the unions and made sure that they were kept on side, I think to some extent, certainly given her background, Rayner's probably doing something similar. There's an attempt to keep both sides of both wings of the Labour Party, the hard left and the soft left.
It feels a bit of a stereotype, though, of what is working class, which I don't know whether that works anymore. But really good to talk to you, Professor. Thank you so much for joining me, Professor Paul Baines. He's a professor of political marketing at the University of Leicester. Let's now look specifically at the comments made by Angela Rayner. So I'm also joined by security specialist Will Geddes. Will, thank you very much for joining me. Now, she talked about shooting terrorists first and then thinking later. Does she have a point?
Well, I think in a very general summary, it's a bit of a slipshod comment because, the police have been operating under certain remits and operational procedures since 2003 when Operation Kratos was developed, which was a system designed by the Metropolitan Police to deal specifically with terrorists. And they consulted with countries around the world, such as Sri Lanka and Israel, who dealt with suicide bombers. So I think her comments, it's pretty generalized. She was inevitably, and I've seen some of the chatter on social media, I don't think she's won many friends in her own party. So what she's really serving to achieve is nothing more than any of us would potentially agree with, but of course, within particular circumstances.
I mean, it's certainly a crackdown on crime from her comments by the party. I mean, do you think that is the way to get voters to sort of engage with the party?
Well, I think coming out with comments is fine and dandy as long as there's some kind of operational procedure and directive behind it. I think she could have a strong word with Sadiq Khan, for example, here in London, where he's taking a very soft soap approach as far as I can see. The Metropolitan Police, I know that there are many officers, many of whom I count as close friends, who signed up to try and deal with antisocial behaviour, hard crime, target criminals, and are having themselves somewhat handcuffed in being able to do so in this sort of woke society that, unfortunately, we have to be in. So I think, yeah, absolutely, we should be tougher on crime. We're not as tough as we should be. I don't think members of the general public feel reassured. So Angela Rayner's comments, great, but back it up, Angela. How are you going to take it from there?
Yeah, that would be interesting if they could have some sort of policy. The other thing is, obviously, there is a side where people will say that if you shoot first and ask questions later, that it risks harming someone that could turn out to be innocent. I mean, we had the John Charles Menendez case, and that didn't go down well at all.
No, the Menendez case obviously was an example, but a very, very isolated example of where it can potentially go wrong. This was a number of different strands, including covert police officers carrying out surveillance. There was a fall in and a drop in that surveillance coverage, which then subsequently identified the wrong target, and ultimately de Menendez did suffer with his life, and he was an innocent individual. But having said that, there are lessons learned from that, and I know within the Metropolitan Police, they really sat back and looked at their operational procedures and how they could prevent something like that happening again. So I think the likelihood of dealing with someone who is a terrorist threat that is under surveillance or is a spontaneous threat, I feel entirely confident, as I think the general public should, that if this threat materialises, that they can deal with it with deadly force.
Well, Will, thank you so much for joining us and for your thoughts. That's Will Geddes. He's a security specialist. So let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. Elliot says, of course not. They need clear and coherent policies on major issues. On net zero and the migrant crisis, etc., and the ability to project the idea that they are a government in waiting, not a school debating society. Yes, similar. I think I quite like the way you put that. Anne says it just makes them look more ridiculous. They're desperately trying to claim law and order, sovereignty, economy, support for NATO and nuclear power as their strengths. Is everyone in the Labour Party now wanting to be a Tory? Well, interesting. I like your position on that one. What do you think? Is Talking Tough going to save them? I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, we'll continue the Great British Debate. The deputy leader of the Labour Party sparked criticism this week, saying that she wants police to shoot your terrorists and ask questions second. So I'm asking you, will Talking Tough save the Labour Party? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, comedian Leo Kearse and former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thanks, Nana. It's 35 minutes past 4. I'm Simon Pusey in the GB newsroom. Top Ukrainian military officials have reportedly been forced into a bomb shelter after coming under a shelling attack. Kiev has accused Russia of repeatedly violating a ceasefire. New video released by the Ukrainian Armed Forces and border guards shows an attack at a checkpoint near the eastern town of Luhansk. The West says the attacks are part of a pretext to invade the country. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has confirmed it successfully launched hypersonic and cruise missiles at sea and land-based targets as part of nuclear drills. The military exercise was overseen by President Vladimir Putin and the leader of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko. At the Munich Security Conference, Prime Minister Boris Johnson warned the world can't underestimate what's at stake if Russia invades Ukraine. He told leaders it's vital that any act of aggression is met by President Putin and that it fails.
If Ukraine is overrun by brute force, I fail to see how a country encompassing nearly 250,000 square miles, the biggest nation in Europe apart from Russia itself, could then be held down and subjugated forever. After a generation of freedom, we're now staring at a generation of bloodshed and misery. I believe that Russia would have absolutely nothing to gain from this catastrophic venture and everything to lose.
In other news, insurers say the clean-up bill after Storm Eunice could exceed £300 million. Record-breaking winds killed at least 4 people, damaged buildings and brought down trees, blocking lines across the rail network. More than 200,000 homes are still without power after yesterday's extreme weather. And Team GB has finally won a medal at the Winter Olympics, with the men's curling team taking the silver. They lost to Sweden 5-4 in a nail-biting final in Beijing. TV, online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. We'll have the very latest headlines at the top of the hour.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
So good afternoon. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. So let's get back to our great British debate this hour. And I'm asking, will talking tough save the Labour Party? Their deputy leader, Angela Rayner, sparked some controversy this week after saying that she said quite hardline on law and order, and the police should shoot your terrorists and ask questions second. So I'm asking, will talking tough save them? What do you think? Let's find out what my panel make of that. I'm joined by Leo Kearse and former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire. Scarlett, I'm going to start with you because you're all into politics. Right. Talking tough, Labour advisor. Is this the way to go?
Well, can I first, though? I don't know what you're talking about saving the Labour Party. I mean, the Labour Party are way ahead in the polls at the moment. So they
What polls are you... Seriously?
Seriously,
nobody takes any notice of those.
For the last month or
nobody
so,
takes any notice of that, Scarlett.
OK.
One month out of 13 years, that's so great.
No, because it's changing, isn't it? No, I mean, so I absolutely don't agree. And I know that your viewers won't agree with me, but I do not agree with the question. But so on Angela Rayner, what it's about is, I think she made a mistake with the terrorist thing. I mean, I don't agree with it. I think literally she was shooting from the hip. I mean, Angela just talks like that. But what she does really care about is actually crime and being hard on crime. And if you remember, many decades ago, Tony Blair said, tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime. And there's a very sort of middle-class thing is that crime doesn't matter. But actually, if you're on an estate...
Crime always matters.
And those are the people who suffer the most. And actually, that's what she's talking... What she's really talking about is not big, heists and massive fraud. She's talking about that small, perpetual crime that actually we really, really need to wipe out.
Well, I think she's talking about terrorism, and that's like big crime. And I think what Will Geddes said, which I quite liked, was where he said that what he'd like to see is actually some sort of policy or something behind it, some sort of backup. I think she wasn't thinking through the terrorism. I mean, maybe she was thinking about the London Bridge attack where they actually did shoot the terrorist dead, and that's fine. If you shoot the terrorist dead, you know who he is, not like John Charles Menendez, which was different. But really, she's talking about that actually we have to get tough on crime. Well, I wish she'd said that instead.
Well, she did. If you read
I did actually.
She did say that. She said one sentence about terrorism, and then she went on to talk about crime.
Right? But that's the problem, is that you can say one thing that will detract from everything else in your actual message, which I think is a problem.
No, it was a mistake. But what I'm trying to say is this is what she believes and this is what she was really saying. And actually, it is incredibly important. And there are policies about crime, and one of them is more policemen.
Well, I think, I mean, it's always exciting having a crazy redhead woman around. You know what I mean? If you're dating them, you never know if your car's going to get keyed or you're going to get stabbed in the neck with some scissors.
Oh, my goodness,
or if they're in politics,
you
never know if they're going to...
We have to take that back. No. That's not fair. There's some very nice redheads out there that wouldn't consider doing that. There might be a few that might, but that's not really fair to imply that, is it? Come on.
This is hardly serious argument about...
It's not really.
All right, well, let's have some serious argument. I mean, Labour's policy has encouraged terrorism, has brought terrorism into this country. Labour introduced unfettered immigration. I'm pro-immigration. I'm pro-immigration, but it is not outrageous. What's outrageous is importing people into this country from places where they follow ideologies, where they hate the West, or they see Western people as infidels.
But what about homegrown terrorists then? Because we are
now because of Labour's policy of multiculturalism and having faith schools where people can be indoctrinated with ideology and be taught that people who don't follow your faith.
No, come on. In Scotland, faith schools, Catholic.
Yeah, I'm not saying Catholic and Protestant sectarianism.
Scarlett.
I'm not saying Catholic and Protestant sectarianism is any better, but we shouldn't be encouraging. We shouldn't be.
This is what Scarlett has to say.
Pretty deadly. I really object to the words unfettered immigration policy. Right? It's absolutely not true. And it was a mistake.
500,000 people a year.
What the mistake Actually, Tony Blair was that he allowed the Bulgarians and Romanians in too early, right? And I think he'd admit to that. I mean, I know when I was a trustee...
Nobody's got a problem with...
Hang on, let Scarlett finish. Let her finish, and then you'll come back.
That it was difficult for people to get in. I mean, I don't know how many people you know who've tried to get into this country before 2010, when it was Labour, between 1997 and 2010. It was really difficult getting work permits. This myth...
Oh, my mate Bernardo got in without a work permit, and when he got deported, he came back in through Ireland.
So you do know somebody?
Oh, yeah, no, I know plenty of people.
Did you not perhaps contact the police then to let them know he's coming? Or
No, I really like Bernardo.
Well, you're complaining about... Well, exactly, you're complaining about unvetted immigration, and then you've let somebody who's come in through illegal channels and you haven't done anything about it.
I disagree with the policy, but I like the people. A lot of the people.
Okay.
But we can't have people coming in, with, following ideologies that are completely incompatible with British values of tolerance and freedom and equality.
But even if you don't follow the British values, at least you understand them and you can follow your own. That's why this is a free space where people can have their own ideologies. Doesn't mean that you're going to suddenly become a terrorist at the end of it. These are people who are brainwashed and actually going beyond their ideology, because their ideology, obviously Islam, is actually a peaceful religion.
I didn't mention Islam.
Yeah, but I'm just saying in terms of terrorism, we know that that's in Islam. This is where these terrorists try and affiliate themselves with. So what I'm saying in terms of this kind of thing, terrorism is obviously terrible, but we need to have proper policies rather than people just posturing and coming out with
absolutely
first and do that and do that. It's not
absolutely, and that's why Angela Rayner's comment made absolutely zero sense. I mean, for a start, shooting first and asking questions later doesn't work as a policy, because then you're going to get like innocent people being shot.
It's not a policy.
It's purely, but it's purely just a dog whistle.
It's a soundbite.
It was Angela. I mean, it was Angela not thinking it through.
Yeah, but when Boris made
redhead women always thought things
no, let's
through
not go
crazy.
back to the let's not go back to the redhead. But when Boris has made comments or that people think are not considered, then he is attacked instantly for those. As Angela Rayner.
So most of the comments that Boris Johnson is attacked for, like watermelon smiles and Piccaninny and all of those, actually, and letterbox when he was talking about women, Islamic women. These weren't just off-the-cuff things. These were written down in a Telegraph article, right?
But out of context.
He was calling for the tolerance.
I mean, he was actually calling for tolerance. That last comment with regard to the letterbox, he was actually... and I'm not defending him because it's a visual... No, hang on, let me finish. What I'm saying with regard to that is that, if you take something out of context and then bring it into this space, then it doesn't work. But Angela Rayner's comment, there is no out of context that you could take that in. That is specifically... This is a dog whistle comment.
It was a... No, I think it was a comment that wasn't thought through. She was talking like this, right? I mean, we all make mistakes when we're doing this. And I assume that she bitterly regrets it, because actually...
Well, she didn't with the other one. She said that she didn't go far enough.
Because Angela Rayner doesn't really do apologies. But on this one, I mean, the real problem is actually she had things to say about crime, really important things to say about crime. And because she said that stupid thing about terrorists, that's one that's what got the publicity.
But that's a problem, isn't it?
But even the comments she made about crime were telling the police to antagonise criminals and beat down their door. But without any sort of due process or any intelligence or any I don't like the idea of the police being empowered to just come and harass me. What if the Labour government, if we ever have one again, I don't think we will, but if the Labour government decide that I'm a dissident and I deserve to be bullied and harassed by the police?
I think this was not political. What she was talking about was people on estates where you know who's who. I mean, you know it. I mean, you know where the drug dealers are, you know where the troublemakers are, and I
just get it delivered to my house.
Don't be silly. No, he's just saying that. You obviously don't do that, Leo. Right, but listen, this show is nothing without your views. So let's welcome... No, we've got a great British voice waiting to be heard. So this is your opportunity to be on the show and tell us what you really think about the topics that we're discussing. And for this debate, I'm joined by Henry Davis, a property developer and author from Liverpool. Henry, thank you for joining us. What did you make of Angela Rayner's comments?
Well, Nana, there's two parts to the answer to this question. The first part is, in terms of her comments, let's be honest, it was just a soundbite, wasn't it? And to the second part, will it save the Labour Party? Well, the reason why, in my view, the Labour Party don't get elected is because they're seen as a tax and spend party. So that is why people typically haven't voted for them over the years. But let's look at the wider picture here, right? We need to get tough on crime, and we have been getting tough on crime, and that hasn't worked. So what is the solution? And every time you invite me on this program, I always like to think of a solution. Very few of your commentators have mentioned so far. The problem is this: it's a cultural issue. We now think it's acceptable that we have a burglary every 108 seconds, okay? And how do we change the culture so that, for example, if my house gets burgled, it's a massive issue. The police are all over here instead of just giving me a crime number and I never hear from them again. How do we change the culture so that crime, burglary, terrorism, burglary in particular, is a major political issue? Now, over the last few weeks, we have had massive media attention about what happened to Boris in Partygate. So can you imagine if the same attention was given to criminal statistics? Okay.
Yeah.
Can you imagine burglaries?
Henry, you make a very, very good point. If we paid more attention to burglary stats and crime figures, then perhaps we'd be better off. But some people might say that Boris may have broken the law. Henry, thank you very much for joining us, and it's really good to talk to you. That's Henry Davis, a property developer and author from Liverpool. Right, so, what do you think? I've been asking, will Talking Tough save the Labour Party? Scarlett doesn't seem to think they need saving, but lots of you have been getting in touch with your views. Stuart says Labour will remain unelectable until they reform and once again champion the cause of defending the working classes against the powerful and wealthy. Cassandra says ditch the identity politics and focus on proper data to deliver whoever needs it. Kay says a genuinely liberal left Labour Party could become a major force in British politics again. An authoritarian left Labour Party, not so much. And there is a poll up on Twitter today throughout the show. I'm asking, will Talking Tough save them? And currently 92% of you say no. That's very close. I thought it'd be 99%. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio.
Question at all.
It's not at all. It's not a cute question. After the break, we'll reflect on another busy week in the royal household. And on the agenda today, well, what next for Prince Andrew after he reached out an out-of-court settlement with Virginia Giuffre for allegations of sexual abuse claims, which he strongly denies. I think he's turned 62 today as well. But first, let's get some weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking a little drier and calmer, but only for a short while. Let's take a look at the details. Cloud will already begin to increase across southwest England this evening, with outbreaks of rain developing, winds easing for a few hours. Mild this evening with temperatures of 10 degrees Celsius. It will be drier this evening across the southeast and London, with the winds easing too, temperatures falling away over the coming hours. Over to Wales, and after a quiet few hours, cloud and rain will begin to move back in from the west. Winds will also increase. Turning chilly for a time this evening across the Midlands, with clear skies over Birmingham. Winds will fall light ahead of more unsettled weather moving in tonight. Temperatures hovering around 4 degrees Celsius. Any lingering rain, sleet and snow will soon clear away from northern England to leave a dry evening. Temperatures tumbling with some patchy frost and ice forming ahead of further rain tonight. Frost and ice also for a time across eastern Scotland, whilst in the west we could see cloud and rain beginning to move in from the Atlantic. Winds also increasing along the coasts. Turning increasingly wet across Northern Ireland this evening, with Belfast holding on to the driest weather for longest. Winds increasing from the west too, but staying on the mild side. Wet and windy weather with then sweep across the whole country as we go through tonight. Gales developing by morning, and that is how the weather is shaping up overnight and into tomorrow morning.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. If you've just joined me, welcome on board. It's just gone 55 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, there is always something going on in the royal household, and this week has been no different because each Saturday we give you a quick update. So let's start with this one. Prince Harry's lawyers have told the High Court that he does not feel safe when he's visiting Britain, a place that always is and always will be his home. The comments were made this week at a legal hearing related to his claim over the Home Office's decision not to allow him to pay for police protection for himself and his family whilst in the UK. So I'm joined by the editor-in-chief at Majesty Magazine, Ingrid Seward. Ingrid, thank you so much for joining me. Now, what came out at this High Court this week, and why is Prince Harry so concerned about coming back to the UK?
Well, Prince Harry says that he doesn't feel safe bringing his family over here because last time he came as a private citizen, he didn't have police protection. Why should he? He's no longer a senior member of the royal family, and therefore he doesn't justify to have protection. And he was chased by paparazzi. Well, are we surprised he was chased by paparazzi? He's made himself such a high-profile person with all his pronouncements about what we should and shouldn't be doing with our thoughts and our bodies and everything else, that, anything Harry says is of interest. So, of course, and also any photographs of Harry are of interest. But so Harry feels that the government of this country is wrong, and that because he is so high profile, he should have protection. He's quite prepared to pay for it. But his American protection officers can't work here because they can't carry guns. They're not allowed to carry guns. So as far as Harry's concerned, that's not good enough. And they don't have access to all the things that our Royal Protection Squad have access to. And this is all quite secretive because they don't want to release any details of how the royal family are protected. So both sides have put their case. Our side says, well, he never offered to pay for his protection, and you can't just buy your way in to the Metropolitan Police. Otherwise, every celebrity in town would be saying they wanted our Metropolitan Police protection.
You'd think
right. That's about it.
You'd think he would just perhaps pay for some security himself, like some royal security. I mean, I'm sure he could get some. I don't think it would cost him the fortune that he's earning with Spotify, Netflix and everything else they're doing. But I wanted to move on to Prince Andrew, because he settled a civil sexual assault case brought against him in the US by Virginia Giuffre, claims which he does strongly deny. And the settlement says that he'll have to make no admission, first of all, of liability, and will pay an undisclosed sum to Ms Giuffre. I know I've heard quotes of around about 12 million. Ingrid, can the royals put this behind them now, do you think?
Well, the trouble is I don't think this scandal will ever go away. I feel that they had to force Andrew into making a settlement. I don't think he wanted to. We'll never quite know that. But it seems to me he didn't really want to. He wanted to go and have his day in court because he really, really wanted to clear his name. But he hasn't been allowed to do that. It was far too damaging to the monarchy. It's been very damaging. And every day there was a drip, drip, drip. Even the very beginning of this week, before we got the news of this case being settled, there was a story about the photograph and that Virginia Giuffre didn't have a copy of it, and so she couldn't prove that it hadn't been doctored, and so it goes on. So it was actually taking over anything positive that the royals are trying to do, and that is a no-no as far as the Queen's concerned.
Yeah, and of course he does deny all those allegations, and potentially he's being paid to leave Windsor Castle. Is that I've heard that? Is that right?
Well, the trouble is that there's so many stories swirling around this. Basically, just very, very quickly, we don't know how much money Andrew has been asked to pay Mrs. Giuffre, and we probably never will know that. But there's been all these enormous sums bandied about. We don't know is the answer. The other thing is his home Royal Lodge, which he has on a very long rental. He spent about £7 million refurbishing it. Now, if he was asked to leave, which, there has been, again, more rumours he might be asked to leave, he would then get that £7 million back. But he wouldn't have the house. And so the money he's put in, he has every right to have paid back to him so that he could move somewhere else.
Interesting.
That's really what that story is about. And it's Royal Lodge, which is in the grounds of Windsor Castle. Used to be the Queen Mother's, country residence, if you like.
Yeah. Well, Ingrid, thank you so much for that catch-up. It's always good to find out what's happening in the royal household. That's Ingrid Seward. She's the editor-in-chief of Majesty magazine. So it's just gone 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, on radio and online. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 5 o'clock. I'm Olivia Guthrie in the GB newsroom. Top Ukrainian military officials have reportedly been forced into a bomb shelter after coming under a shelling attack. Kiev has accused Russia of repeatedly violating a ceasefire. New video released by the Ukrainian Armed Forces and Border Guards shows an attack at a checkpoint near the eastern town of Luhansk. The country also reported the death of a soldier, saying he was killed in shelling by pro-Russian separatists. The West says the attacks are part of a pretext to invade the country. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has confirmed it successfully launched a hypersonic and cruise missiles at sea and land-based targets as part of nuclear drills. The military exercise was overseen by President Vladimir Putin and the leader of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko. The Ukraine crisis is dominating the agenda at the Munich Security Conference. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has warned the world can't underestimate what's at stake if Russia invades Ukraine. He told the conference it's vital that any violent act of aggression by President Putin fails.
If Ukraine is overrun by brute force, I fail to see how a country encompassing nearly 250,000 square miles, the biggest nation in Europe apart from Russia itself, could then be held down and subjugated forever. After a generation of freedom, we're now staring at a generation of bloodshed and misery. I believe that Russia would have absolutely nothing to gain from this catastrophic venture and everything to lose.
The Prime Minister later spoke to Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, reiterating the UK's unequivocal support for the country's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Boris Johnson also agreed with the US assessment that Russia's president has made up his mind about attacking the capital, Kiev.
I think that certainly things are in motion, but the question is whether it can all be pulled back and whether the president of Russia is still able to call this operation off. I think that possibility must logically still exist, and therefore I think it's absolutely vital that we have a path of dialogue.
Well, Mr. Zelensky told the conference Ukraine will defend itself with or without the support of its partners, while the US Vice President Kamala Harris said Russia will suffer unprecedented financial costs if it invades its neighbour.
And we will target those who are complicit and those who aid and abet this unprovoked invasion. Make no mistake, the imposition of these sweeping and coordinated measures will inflict great damage on those who must be held accountable.
Well, in other news, more bad weather is set to hit the UK, with forecasters warning winds of up to 70 miles per hour are expected over the next couple of days. Thousands of homes are still without power after Storm Eunice swept across the country yesterday, with insurers saying the clean-up bill could exceed £300 million. Record-breaking winds killed at least 4 people, damaged buildings and brought down trees, blocking routes across the rail network. Meteorologist John Hammond says yellow wind warnings have been issued for most of the country.
The very worst is over. We're not going to see gusts as high as we saw yesterday, but we're in for a rough ride over the next few days, that is for sure. What we really want, of course, is prolonged calm weather, but that's not really what we're going to get. We are going to see some rain pushing in from the west through today, but the winds, probably more importantly, are going to pick up yet again.
The NHS is to stop taking cash from the gambling industry for the treatment of people suffering addiction. NHS England says the decision had been heavily influenced by patients who were uncomfortable about using services paid for by the industry, a view that's been echoed also by medics. More than 100 people have been arrested in Canada after 3 weeks of protests against the country's COVID restrictions. Lorry drivers who brought the city of Ottawa to a standstill were removed from the capital by police. They were arrested and detained on charges of mischief. Nearly 24 vehicles were also towed away, including those blocking one of the city's major roads. Ottawa police say one officer suffered a minor injury. No protesters were hurt. And Team GB has finally won a medal at the Winter Olympics, with the men's curling team taking silver. They lost to Sweden 5-4 in a nail-biting final in Beijing. The women's team is also in the final and will play Japan early tomorrow morning. The royal family tweeted their support, saying Great Britain's journey has been fantastic to watch and a great achievement. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now it's back to Nana.
This is GB News, coming up to 7 minutes after 5 o'clock. Good afternoon, I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. The show is all about opinion. That's mine, theirs, and of course yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's comedian Leo Kearse and also former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire. Still to come. This week saw the striking image of Naomi Campbell at the age of 51 on the front cover of Vogue, holding her 9-month-old daughter. So for my difficult conversation, I'll be sitting down with a mum who's been judged because she's older. She's an older parent, and she's now supporting other women like her through her blog. That is my difficult conversation in a few moments' time. My Great British Debate this hour: 6 million households could be forced to install water meters as the government tries to get a grip on the water waste across the UK. But with over 3 million litres of water leaking from pipes underground every day, that equates to about 1,245 Olympic swimming pools worth. Is it really up to us to save the water in our homes? And I'm asking, should we be forced to have these water meters? And we've got some live music for you at the end of the show to get your Saturday evening off to a perfect start.
Maybe something simple, love.
yours for dinner tonight.
Breakfast and dinner tonight, all at once. Rosie Smith shall perform her new single Breakfast for Dinner at the end of the show. Email me your thoughts, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or why not send me that tweet at gbnews. So it's time for difficult conversations, and this week saw the striking image of Naomi Campbell. She's absolutely striking. She's beautiful on the front cover of Vogue. She was holding her 9-month-old daughter. At age 51, she's well and truly falls into the category of an older mum. But what's wrong with that? Now, the number of women getting pregnant in their 40s has more than doubled since 1990, and nearly 1 birth in 5 is to a woman over the age of 35. But there is still a stereotype surrounding us older mums, or geriatric mums. I'm an older mum myself, it wouldn't change a thing, but it doesn't come without judgment. Or my first guest, or my next guest, had her last child at age 43. Lucy Baker is now running a support group for older mums just like her, and she joins me this afternoon. Lucy, thank you very much for joining me.
My pleasure.
It's lovely to talk to you. Now, you didn't have your first child until age 34. That's on the limit, though, of being geriatric. I mean, what was the reasoning behind deciding to wait for children to have them later?
Well, I mean, in my eyes, 34 is quite young. But like you say, it's on the cusp of the sort of geriatric label, which, unfortunately, is 35 in this country. So as soon as you hit 35, you're supposedly sort of past it. I waited, I guess, to have my children because I was having a good time. In all honesty, I was enjoying my life. I was working, living in London, and it just didn't feel like it was something that was it wasn't really in my periphery, you know. So, yeah, in 34, even at the age of 34, and I said this last week in an article that I was in, it felt young to me. And I was, you know, it's a bit of a mystery to me as well that it felt that people then qualify, or people then sort of think that's an older mum or nearly an older mum even at 34. So, yeah.
It seemed a bit odd because I had my first child at 37 and I, like you, was too busy partying to be bothered to ensnare a man. I just wanted to have some fun. Yeah, I had like nice, lovely surround sound in my house, a nice fast car. I thought, this is great. This is how I want to go. And then actually it was a thought. I thought to myself, do you know what? I better have some children because otherwise I probably won't have any at all. So 37 was the first child I had. But that's my second child, who I actually had at 46. So I don't know what you call somebody at 46 who's had a baby. Mad.
I think you call somebody at 46 a mum. Yeah. You know, what are these labels for? And I called my blog Geriatric Mum because A, it attracts attention, but B, come on, what a ridiculous term. Does that mean we've got, you know, geriatric wombs? What is it about? Why is this word geriatric being used?
Exactly.
And when I found out I was pregnant at 42 with my third baby, I went online, I started Googling, and the word risk kept coming back at me. And I thought, do you know what? If I'm one of those, if I'm in this position, there's many other women who are going to be feeling the same. You know, we all jump on Google, let's face it, that's our kind of first landing point, isn't it, when we want to find out information. So, you know, I wanted to try and change that conversation. You know, you're not geriatric, you're not past it. You can have babies in your 40s and it can be okay.
Although in the 40s, I know that the 40-year-olds and above are actually one of the highest groups actually having abortions as well. Contrary to a lot of belief that people say it's difficult to get pregnant at 40, I don't particularly think that that's necessarily the case. It depends on you, yourself personally, and this generic label that people put on you as a geriatric after 35 is a bit crazy. But did you have any issues, though? Because obviously you talked about risk. Were there any problems for the birth itself?
No. So like we said before, I had my first one at 34, my second one at 37, like you, third one at 43. And, you know, if I'm going to be honest, giving birth is hard anyway. I didn't have a different experience. In fact, I enjoyed my pregnancy way much more when I was older, maybe because I've been through it before. I felt more confident in my groove. You know, I could ask the right questions. I was actually under consultant care because I was, you know, geriatric. So I I didn't have any complications. I didn't have any problems. And, you know, in all honesty, giving birth and all of those things, it's a difficult thing. So I just felt more prepared. I felt more in my groove. I felt more confident. And I think that's a really positive part of being pregnant when you're older, this geriatric womb. That you are maybe more confident, you're more in your groove, you want to be able to ask the right questions. You know, even at 34, and I talk about this a lot, although I was, you know, just under that age of being geriatric, I felt young at 34. I didn't ask questions. I went with the flow. I did what I was told almost in my pregnancy. I didn't question anything. And I think when you're older, you have that ability to be a bit more, you know, make better decisions for yourself. And that certainly was the case for me.
For me, I thought it was the menopause. Didn't bother having any scans or anything. It's like, what, 16 weeks? Really? How did that happen? How did that happen? Good question. But the thing is, Naomi Campbell, though, a mum at 51, I don't know whether she actually carried the baby. I wonder if she did. I didn't find out whether she actually, you know, got the pregnant thing or whether she had a
She hasn't actually said. What she has said is that it's her child. So read into that what you will, and loads of people, that's the thing with mothers, everybody wants to guess, they want to second guess, they want to judge, they want to have an opinion, and that's what I want to do with the whole geriatric mum thing. You know, let's not judge and question why people have children later in life. Let's embrace it and reward it almost. You know, it's a huge, huge thing, isn't it? And Naomi Campbell being on the front of the magazine stirred up a lot of emotion last week, and I was called left, right and centre from various sort of media outlets and magazines and that kind of thing, because I'm championing women who are older, and I think it's really important that we have these conversations. You know, it's much like women are really judged when they have babies at 18 and 19. They're actually really judged when they have babies older. Naomi Campbell's been under the questioning as such, and I was. When I told people I was having a baby at 42, well, he was actually born when I was 43, the comments were, did you realise you're going to be 47 when the baby starts school? I thought you'd had enough of nappies. Did you, you know, sleepless nights? I thought they were a thing of the past. Everybody had well, not everybody, that's wrong. A lot of people had a comment to start with. And only when I started saying, do you know what? I've thought of all those things myself. Don't you think that I've had those whirring round in my head at bedtime, you know, like, oh my God, I'm going to be 47 But they were for me to accept and me to move on. You know, my husband and I had those conversations together and we accepted it, and that was our choice. So I am going to be 47 when he starts school. I probably will be the oldest mum.
But you don't look that old, though. See, that's the thing, Lucy. So you don't look like a geriatric. And I'm very surprised that the woke police have not actually got their hands on this particular narrative, but I'm sure there's still time. Lucy, thank you so much for joining me. It's lovely to talk to you, and good luck with everything. That's Lucy Baker. She's the founder of Geriatric Mum blog. I have a chat with my panel, who I'm joined by today, comedian Leo Kirsten, also former advisor, Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire. Scarlett, talk to me, because you had your child in your mid-30s, was it? And
so I had the first one at 30 and the second at 36. So I was a geriatric mother. On top of that, I only had one kidney. So I wasn't supposed to have children after the age of 30. So and it all went fine. But actually, I mean, it is. I completely agree. You feel so young at 30. I mean, the thought of. I mean, I remember, you know, taking when I was 30 my baby back from hospital and thinking, I can't look after this. I mean, can you imagine being 18 or 19?
Oh my God.
So this whole thing is just completely ridiculous. And I mean, yes, and the whole question of do you have the energy? Well, you know, I think we all get tired. I mean, you know, all of us could do with more sleep.
Well, as soon as when you're a bit older, though, things can go slightly wrong. I mean, mine went slightly awry, but I'm still here. We're all still here. I had eclampsia with HELLP syndrome. Everything shut down. And they said to me the only reason why I'm still alive is because I'm super fit. And they said, and anybody else normally in your state would not have made it. But I was super fit. I had a fitness business. So that's what I...
Blimey.
Yeah. I've got pictures if you want to see them. Keep it clean, Leo, not like that.
Pictures of you nearly dying.
Yeah. I'll put those on, post those on. No, not quite that, but my little ivory, you know.
Yeah.
Now he's very cute, though. He was in a little incubator and everything, yeah.
So how early?
28 weeks and 3 days.
God, that's tough, isn't it? He must have been absolutely
28
minute.
weeks. that horrible movie. It keeps coming
28
back
weeks
to it.
later.
What about you? You haven't got any children, have you?
No, I've got one on the way. I'm a geriatric dad.
You've got
So
one on the way.
I'm 45. I can't believe 35 is geriatric mother. That's so young.
It's going to hurt your back to bend down to pick up that child.
No, I'll be fine. I'll lift with the knees. I've watched your fitness videos.
You have.
But not like that. But 35 is such a ridiculously young age. They should change the word, not geriatric. It's a really sort of nasty word to use.
It needs to go, actually. I don't know why. We need to get onto that as well. Seeing as people are so busy with this woke watch of words. That This is one
Are we
of those
woke now?
Do you think that they've allowed this to go because it's probably pertaining to women, so that's okay? It does seem like that, doesn't it? Right, so coming up, make sure you join us for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should we be forced to have water meters? 6 million households could be forced to install them as the government tries to get a grip on the water waste across the UK. But there are over 3 million litres of water leaking from pipes underground every day. So that equates to 1,245 Olympic swimming pools. But should we be forced to have water meters under that? Email us, gbviews@gbnews.uk. But first, let's get an update with your weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking a little drier and calmer, but only for a short while. Let's take a look at the details. Cloud will already begin to increase across southwest England this evening, with outbreaks of rain developing, winds easing for a few hours. Mild this evening with temperatures of 10 degrees Celsius. It will be drier this evening across the southeast and London, with the winds easing too, temperatures falling away over the coming hours. Over to Wales, and after a quiet few hours, cloud and rain will begin to move back in from the west. Winds will also increase. Turning chilly for a time this evening across the Midlands, with clear skies over Birmingham. Winds will fall light ahead of more unsettled weather moving in tonight. Temperatures hovering around 4 degrees Celsius. Any lingering rain, sleet and snow will soon clear away from northern England to leave a dry evening. Temperatures tumbling with some patchy frost and ice forming ahead of further rain tonight. Frost and ice also for a time across eastern Scotland, whilst in the west we could see cloud and rain beginning to move in from the Atlantic. Winds also increasing along the coasts. Turning increasingly wet across Northern Ireland this evening, with Belfast holding on to the driest weather for longest. Winds increasing from the west too, but staying on the mild side. Wet and windy weather with then sweep across the whole country as we go through tonight. Gales developing by morning, and that is how the weather is shaping up overnight and into tomorrow morning.
Join me, Mark White, here on GB News. For more than 2 decades, I've been at the sharp end of reporting crime and security at home and abroad. From the scourge of terrorism to the fight against violent crime and the deepening small boats crisis in the Channel, they're issues you rightly care about, and so do I. As GB News Home and Security Editor, my focus will be on the stories that matter to you.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good afternoon. This is GB News. It's fast approaching 24 minutes after 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. If you've just tuned in, we've got loads of stuff still to come. You can watch us online. You can even watch us on YouTube as well, where you can subscribe there at GB News. But I'm joined by my superstar panel, former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire and comedian Leo Kearse. Right, so it is time for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should we be forced to have water meters? 6 million households could be forced to install one in a bid to cut usage as the government tries to get a grip on the water waste across the UK. Now, they suggest that some areas of the country are at risk of running dry, and a water meter would allow households to see what they're using and reduce the waste. But according to Water UK, a large proportion of the water waste comes from the pipes below the ground, so from the water companies themselves, and nothing to do with us. According to their figures, 347,639 kilometres of water pipes are owned by water companies. 3,113 million litres of water leak from those pipes every day, and that equates to 1,245 Olympic swimming pools. They also suggest that there's many reasons why water pipes leak. Some are old and have worn out through gradual erosion. Others can get damaged by freezing water. And ground movement, such as natural shifts in building foundations, can also put a strain on the pipework. So considering how much water we waste through leaky pipes alone, I'm asking, should we be forced to have water meters? I'm joined by a founder of environmental policy group One Home, Angela Terry. Angela, thank you for joining me. Now, looking at the weather yesterday, you'd be shocked to hear that the government are suggesting that there's huge water shortages across the UK. We'll be talking to her and finding out whether that's really a problem, and she will be coming back. But let's just ask Leo Kearse, how much water do you waste?
I don't waste any water. I'm very careful. I use it. I have a 25-minute shower. I think that's fine. I've got one of those rainforest ones. Gets through several...
You do realise showers waste more water than everything.
Especially if you spend 25 minutes in there.
Exactly.
Yeah, singing Bohemian Rhapsody. But I think this is ridiculous. I mean, look at go outside, walk around. There's so much water falling from the sky. Literally free water falls from the sky. We can't keep hold of it. If you go to Dubai, where it never seems to rain ever, there's water. You can go and have a shower. How come in this country, where water falls from the sky for free, we don't have enough water? Where's it going? Shouldn't we put something out to catch it?
Well, you would have thought so. The thing they've got out to catch it would actually catch it, but I don't really why they keep losing it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the problem is Victorian pipes that haven't been fixed, water companies that won't invest properly, and so you get the leakage. I mean, possibly in places like the Scilly Isles, there is a water shortage. I mean, there probably are, that actually you do have to be careful. But in mainland Britain, I mean, in London, there is no question that if I do try and be good and I don't let the taps run when I'm brushing my teeth and all of that stuff, actually, it really doesn't make any difference.
Well, if you had a water meter, would it, though? Because you'd have a water meter measuring how much water you're...
I do have a smart meter. I mean, I never
for water.
check it for water. I think so. Anyway, yes, I do, and I never, ever check it because, actually, I just use the water I use. I mean, I have showers. They don't last 25 minutes, and it's not like being in a rainforest, but... I use the water. And actually, when the water companies invest properly and get proper pipes, then I will take them seriously.
But they're coming to us, though, for the waste of water when they're wasting a lot. I mean, you with your 25-minute shower, would you be happy to have a water meter?
What, just
or have you got one already?
Just get a semi-damp flannel and wipe myself under the armpits every morning. No,
that wouldn't do.
I mean, I'm not sure if I've got a water meter or not. I don't know what sort of nerd would even know. But I think it's ridiculous having these smart meters. Smart basically means that it's connected to the internet and can be controlled by the government. So if you breach the social credit score, what they've got in China is a social credit score. So if you don't have the right opinions, if you don't say the right things, if you search for Tiananmen Square, they can cut off your banking, and this would extend to water, which you need to stay alive.
Water like they cut off the air to Mars.
Yeah, exactly. Look at Trudeau. Look at Trudeau cutting off the banking.
Total Recall, my favourite film. Right. Well, I'm joined by the founder of environmental policy group One Home, Angela Terry. Angela, let's see if you're there. Oh, fabulous. Right. So, Angela, if you look at the weather, because yesterday there's loads of water everywhere, but the government is suggesting that there are shortages across the UK. I mean, is this actually really a big problem?
So it's currently a problem that can be managed by the water companies. But what's happening is we're getting more extreme weather, as yesterday showed us, and that includes much hotter and drier summers. But our use of water continues. In fact, it goes up in the summer because we take more showers, we use more paddling pools. So it's a case of where the water is, where it lands, and where the population is. So it's about supply and demand and balancing it. So what we see with climate change is that we are getting hotter, drier periods. And in that time, our water resources start to diminish. So our reserves start to empty out. Basically, our rivers start to run dry. Yet the amount we want to extract from those water resources continues at the same level, if not goes up. Now, this map that you can see, this is from the Met Office. It shows January rainfall this year. So we have big weather incidences like we had yesterday where we all notice the rain, but we tend not to notice when it doesn't rain because we're happily going about our business. So what this map shows is that in January, we had very little rain compared to what we would expect for an average winter's January period. And we're seeing those differences happening more and more often.
About the fact that they waste 3 billion litres of water every day through leaks. I mean, and South West Water apparently have increased their leakage last year, despite the target of 3% that they were planning to reduce it by. Now, surely we wouldn't be in the situation if they didn't lose so much water.
Yes, so there's three things happening. Basically, we have an increasing population. We are using about 140 litres of water a day per person, and the amount of water we have is going down. Now, obviously, any wastage is not good news for us because we're paying for that water, and all wastage should be, where possible, cut down. But the water companies are controlled, monitored by the government regulator, which is Ofwat, because they're obviously private companies. So it's up to Ofwat to stipulate how much of their profits are invested in fixing leaking pipes. And so that comes down to government policy.
But that sort of not really helped, really, because they're still losing 3 billion litres a day, which is actually a lot of water to be losing, and then asking people to put meters in. I mean, what is your take on water meters then? Do you think that they are a good plan?
Well, I think it depends on your personal circumstances. We're in a cost of living crisis. So if you think you are careful with water, so you say, for example, you turn off the taps when you're brushing your teeth, so you don't let all that water go, and you're not putting sprinklers around a big garden and filling swimming pools all day. So if you're not living a very wasteful water lifestyle, you would probably end up saving money by going on a water meter. So if you're someone who thinks that you are using less water, then it would save you money to go on a water meter generally. So it comes down to individual circumstances, whether it's a good idea for them financially or not. The other reason to install a water meter is the same about installing smart energy meters. It's about making you more aware of how much water you're using, because what we know for climate change is we need to use less water per person because the rivers are running dry in the peak summers, and that's when all the fish are dying and all the wildlife is suffering. So it's about how do we keep people and wildlife safe in really hot weather, and that's where consumer behaviour, how we encourage people to use less water when there is a water shortage, And that's those dreaded sprinkler alerts that, what do they call them? Sprinkler bans that companies issue in the summer. By the time we get to those bans, we're already acting too late. It's more sensible to sort of have people aware of this as an issue going along. And so we don't get to that kind of danger zone, basically.
I hear you. Water meters, I suppose, you can monitor it, but then I suppose they can then monitor you. Angela, thank you very much for your input. That's Angela Terry. She's the founder of One Home. Joining the debate, I'm asking, should we be forced to have water meters? Let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. Gary says, in the areas where water is scarcely, then yes. Amanda says, no, the current system works fine. Why try to complicate things even more? Lee says 100% yes, and second homes should pay a one-off tariff as well. Interesting, excellent. We'll keep them coming. And on the subject of geriatric mums, David sent a message that said, hi, Nana. My wife, Linda, was told in 1981 that she was a geriatric mum at age 24. Seems things have moved on, but it is still a really derogatory term, I agree. I'm Nana. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, we'll continue with our Great British debate. I'm asking, should we be forced to have water meters? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, comedian Leo Kearse and former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire. We'll also have some live music on the show as we meet this week's Great British Talent.
Like a tidal wave of grief and commotion, I need a sign to know I'm alive, or maybe something simple like breakfast for dinner tonight.
It's 5:34. I'm Olivia Guthrie in the GB newsroom. Top Ukrainian military officials have reportedly been forced into a bomb shelter after coming under a shelling attack. Kiev has accused Russia of repeatedly violating a ceasefire. A new video released by the Ukrainian Armed Forces and Border Guards shows an attack at a checkpoint near the eastern town of Luhansk. The West says the violations are part of a pretext to invade the country. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has confirmed it successfully launched hypersonic and cruise missiles at sea and land-based targets as part of nuclear drills. The military exercise was overseen by President Putin and the leader of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko. At the Munich Security Conference, Prime Minister Boris Johnson warned the world can't underestimate what's at stake if Russia invades Ukraine. He told leaders it's vital that any violent act of aggression by President Putin fails.
If Ukraine is overrun by brute force, I fail to see how a country encompassing nearly 250,000 square miles, the biggest nation in Europe apart from Russia itself, could then be held down and subjugated forever. After a generation of freedom, we're now staring at a generation of bloodshed and misery. I believe that Russia would have absolutely nothing to gain.
Back in the UK, insurers say the clean-up bill after Storm Eunice could exceed £300 million. Record-breaking winds killed at least 4 people, damaged buildings and brought down trees, blocking lines across the rail network. More than 200,000 homes are still without power after yesterday's extreme weather. And Team GB has finally won a medal at the Winter Olympics, with the men's curling team taking silver. They lost to Sweden 5-4 in a nail-biting final in Beijing. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. I'll be back with the latest headlines at the top of the hour.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good afternoon, 39 minutes after 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Now it's time to get back to our Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, should we be forced to have water meters? 6 million households could be forced to install them in a bid to cut usage after the government suggested that some areas in the UK are at risk of running dry. Households that refuse water meter installation will be placed on a more expensive flat rate, which could add about £200 a year to the bill. So for my Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should we be forced to have water meters? Let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by comedian Leo. Leo the Lion. Leo Rara the Lion. No, Leo Curse. And also former, you can tell I watch children's TV, and former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire. Right, so Leo, are you pro water meters?
I'm definitely not pro water meters. It feels like every little aspect of our life is getting measured and regulated. And now water. Now I can't even brush my teeth without the government watching me. Come on, just let me flush the toilet in peace.
You're not that interesting, Leo. They don't want to watch
Why do they want to?
They just want to take your money. That's all.
We get free water from the sky. How can they possibly? All they need to do is collect it in a bucket and give it to me.
No, well, that's what you can do. That's what people do. They collect it in water butts and they do it all. I don't see the fuss. I mean, we have electricity meters. We have gas meters. They know the government, that I'm not completely paranoid about, know how much gas I use, how much electricity I use. I have a water meter. And I think it saves me money because actually I don't use that much water.
Yes, for now, though, that's how it always starts, doesn't it? Tippy, tippy, nice and slow. If you've got a water meter, it's a lot cheaper for you. It was like diesel. We'll give you diesel. You have that. You can go further with diesel. Turns out diesel's more expensive and it pollutes the environment. Actually, cutting out diesel cars completely.
Hold on. We've got gas meters and we've got electricity
Well, I don't particularly like those either. I mean,
OK, so what you want to use as much gas and electricity as you want and just play a fat rate. No. They've said if you don't do it, it's fine.
You'll pay more.
You'll pay more.
Look what's happening in Canada. With you've got peaceful protesters, and they're having their banking facilities cut off by the government.
Hold on. Sorry. You talk to Canadians, and they don't feel they're very peaceful. They feel
it doesn't matter what people feel.
Ottawa,
and whoever listens to the state propaganda can feel whatever they like. They are peaceful protesters. They got bouncy castles.
1 second, Leo. What is the relevance of that to this particular discussion?
The people in Ottawa are being held hostage.
I'd like the connection here.
So the government in Canada has passed laws that mean that they can cut off people's banking facilities, and they've already done it with funding. But now they can cut off.
So you say
if they can cut off banking facilities, then if the government can control your water, they can cut off your water.
Is that just?
And this is happening in the world right now.
Do you think that just because you've got a water meter, they can't cut it off anyway? They could do that anyway. So I don't really see what the relevance is, but they won't. Why would they? It's not really.
I just don't understand why water meters are terrible and gas and electricity meters that all of us live with are fine.
I mean, water's free. It comes from the sky.
Well, then
it should be a communal asset. We go down to the village pump, we crank the handle, we feed the sheep.
But you can do it. You can do that's fine. If that's what you want to do, you save the rainwater and you sort it out. And I mean, I'm too lazy to do it, but that's absolutely fine. But actually,
we're going to end up brush my teeth with my own urine. I mean, I'm not Tom Hanks in Castaway.
I'm talking about the rain.
Because I saw him starve, get slimmer, and it was horrible. Because I don't really like the man, so I was quite happy to see that.
I could do with a couple of weeks of that.
He had that football thing that he kept kicking about. It looked really boring, actually. Have you seen Castaway?
No, because I thought it would be a really boring. I thought it would be a very boring film, and I could live without it.
He had a face on it, yeah. Wilson.
Wilson, that's it, Wilson.
Right.
Although they make tennis rackets, but never mind. Let's move on.
Yes.
So what are you thinking about this? So water meters, right?
Water meters.
I've had an issue one time because I had a water meter in this house, and it turns out that there was a bill of £900. And it's just me, and it's a nice little 3-bedroom house, but 900 quid for 1 month. So then they said, well, what have you got there? Have you got a swimming pool? 1 month? Exactly. Have you got a swimming pool? I wish, but I didn't. And it turned out that ultimately they then monitored my water. I went on holiday. The water was still coming from somewhere. They expected me to pay it, but then generously said, we will give you this one-off time where you won't have to pay that. That was because it wasn't my fault, but they felt they were being generous. Now, the problem here is they are wasting and losing water hand over fist. So why should we not be actually billing them? Why should we not be monitoring them? Let them take a rain check on their dividends to their shareholders.
Look, I completely agree. I mean, of course, I think that the water companies should stop raking in their millions and start actually investing it in putting in decent pipes that are not Victorian, that don't leak. I mean, God knows what London is like. I mean, it must be like a sort of flood underneath.
A sewer with rats.
I was going to say, and then the sewage. And then the sewage.
That's another subject. We'll do that next week.
Which is completely disgusting.
Well, this show is nothing without you and your views. So let's welcome one of our great British voices. And this, of course, is your opportunity to join us and be part of the show. Tell us what you think about the topics that we're discussing. And Graham is a personal trainer from Luton. Graham, thank you for joining us. Graham, briefly then, do you feel that we should be forced to have water meters?
No, we shouldn't. It's a God-given natural thing. We shouldn't be. Yeah, we could pay towards the piping and all the rest of it, but I just believe that it's going to affect people's health and well-being. I mean, we already know that people are cold in the winter and they die of the cold in the winter. This will be the next thing. People will be scared to drink water. People might drink less water. Are gardeners able to sow their seeds at their gardens that can feed themselves, their neighbours and their families with fresh veg? I don't see. I mean, one of the top 10 reasons to have one of these meters is to know about a leak. I don't want to know about a leak. We spent 52 years, I'm 52 now, and this is the only house that's not been a council house. And believe me, the closest thing we had to a leak was 1978 when the pipes were frozen and it didn't leak.
We can't go back that far. We haven't got that much time. but it's really good to talk to you. Thank you for your thoughts on it. So water meters don't sound like a great idea for Graham, and it is true because it kind of puts you off drinking water. Keep your thoughts coming in. That's Graham Waugh. He's a GB voice and personal trainer. But let's move on now to the part of the show that I love, where we meet the brightest and most exciting musicians in the UK as we speak to our great British talent. And this week, I'm joined by singer and songwriter Rosie Smith. But before we meet her, let's take a look at her in action.
Maybe something simple like breakfast for dinner tonight.
So Rosie was invited after a chance meeting to record her debut album and EP with the team from Abbey Road Studios, who have composed and produced songs for the likes of Celine Dion, Kylie Minogue and Timbaland. That's just one of the tracks, Breakfast for Dinner. So I'm pleased to say Rosie Smith joins me now. Rosie, thank you very much for joining me. Tell me about your experience. Abbey Road Studios, following in the footsteps of some big artists.
Yes. So I was invited down there, and it was bonkers. There's a cafe downstairs with where the old Beatles, where they used to sit and everything. It was amazing. But yeah, it's such a legacy, and it's such a pleasure to be able to record there.
So talk to me briefly about your EP and Breakfast for Dinner and...
Yeah, so breakfast or dinner, that was a weird one. It actually came from a dream that I had about being at my grandparents' house. They're still alive. But my nan and granddad used to make me breakfast or dinner as a kid. So that's sort of where the song came from. And yeah, the EP was an acoustic thing that we did just to get a little taster out there before the album. So,
So the album, you've got lots of tracks on the album. Is that ready to go?
Yeah, so we've actually finished that now. I think it was last week. It was all, I don't know what I can say and what I can't say, but that's all. I'll say what I can.
Something that nobody else knows about you, that's what we want.
But yes, that's all finished. There's 17 tracks in total, but we've narrowed it down to 12 on the main album, and then there's the rest on the deluxe version. So,
I noticed that you can play instruments as well, because that's a real bugbear of mine when people just sing and they don't play anything.
Yes.
I can't play anything.
Can you not know? Well, I actually couldn't sing until I was maybe 11. I begged my mum for singing lessons, and my whole family were against it because they thought, if this girl can't sing now, there's no hope. So I was lucky enough, and I had a lovely lady called Viola Nagel who taught me how to sing. And then I was jealous that people could accompany themselves, so I thought I better learn how to play something. But I've just graduated from drama school, so I can play guitar, piano, drums, bass, and trumpet.
My God.
So yeah, I mean, trumpet and bass, I'm a little bit, yeah.
It's nice to say it there, Rosie.
It is, yeah.
Well, look, we look forward to hearing your track very shortly.
Thank you very much.
Fabulous. That's Rosie Smith. She is our great British talent, and I'm looking forward to hearing she'll be playing her single Breakfast for Dinner before the end of the show. Not one to be missed. But first, it's time for my quick-fire quiz. That's the part of the show where we judge the panel on some of the week's other stories. I've got comedian Leo Kearse and former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire, who are both going to buzz in when they know the answer. OK, Scarlett, let me hear your buzzer, please. Thank you very much. And Leo, your buzzer?
In support of the Canadian truckers.
Very good. Right. So, are you ready? So, it's the best out of 3 today. So, question number 1. Please play along at home, by the way. What has a chief, or chef even, a chief, who writes these things? What has a chef in Australia banned from his restaurant? Is it A, dinners with tattoos and jewellery? B, diners who are single? Oh, hang on, I've gone wrong. It's not dinners, it's diners. Diners, well, it's difficult to tell the difference between the two. Aren't they spelt the same?
Is it D, people who can't read?
Very good. Ha, 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 ha. But they're spelt the same. They sound different. Is it A, diners, is there another N in there? Diners with tattoos. See, I can't spell. Diners with tattoos and jewellery. B, diners who are single. Or C, diners over the age of 80. Leo.
Is it A, diners with tattoos and jewellery?
Diners with tattoos and jewellery. It is A, diners with tattoos and jewellery. Well done, 1-0. Yes, a restaurant has caused outrage down under because it decided to ban customers with heavy jewellery, visible tattoos and designer-labelled apparel to stop intimidation of diners. So I'll now know how to spell diners. Do you think that the restaurant owner has gone too far?
Well, yeah, I've been to Australia and everybody's got tattoos, so I don't know who's going to eat in his restaurant.
What do you think?
Completely.
Have you got tattoos?
No, I haven't, but my daughter's got tattoos. Everybody I know under the age of 30's got tattoos. I think they're fine.
Have you got tattoos, Leo?
No tattoos.
Were you too scared?
We're boring.
Tattoo scared.
We're boring
No,
and old.
You're too scared.
Just why would you graffiti a temple?
Too scared. Right, question number 2. He thought of that. That's not fair. That'll be on his comedy sketch even. Right, question 2. A live YouTube stream of planes trying to land at Heathrow during Storm Eunice has become an unexpected online hit. But to the nearest 100, how many people were watching on average yesterday? Nearest 100. Leo. Scarlett's not pressing her buzzer. I don't know why she's doing that.
180,000.
180,000. Right, what do you think to the nearest?
450,000.
450,000. Let's have a look. It was actually 200,000 viewers. Leo, you were really close. Oh, my goodness, this is a landslide. Well, it might be.
I think it will be.
Aviation enthusiast Jerry Dyer has been streaming aircraft attempts to land at the London airport in winds of up to 70 miles per hour on his Big Jet TV channel. His lively commentary, plus the footage as planes approach, sometimes having to abort, have been attracting more than 200,000 live viewers at a time. Right, so let's move on to question 3, and this is true or false. Now, these were some of the weirdest replacement items sent to homes by supermarkets during home delivery. Sausage rolls instead of toilet rolls, sponge scourers instead of Victoria sponge, a meatloaf CD instead of an actual meatloaf. True. Scarlett, you think that's true? Let's have a look. Is she right? It's true. 2-1. You can't win, but it's good. Well done.
He's won this time.
Well done, Leo. Next time. If it had been, but
Absolutely.
Next time, Leo. Next time. Right. It is, of course, true. Scarlett is right. A lot of these strange substitutions received by shoppers in their online shopping orders, according to the research, the consumer group, which. Right. So well done to Leo for winning at last. But now to play us out, here is Rosie Smith performing Breakfast for Dinner. It's our great British talent.
I don't know why I act like I wanna try, but only you can understand why I act like the way I am. But you know the way that I'm feeling toward it. I stuck in the same old loop, 'cause I wanna feel some love and emotion. Like a tidal wave of grief and commotion. I need a sign to know I'm alive. Or maybe something simple like breakfast for dinner. Why is it not just as simple as pie? 'Cause I wanna feel some love and emotion. Like a tidal wave of grief and commotion. I need a sign to know I'm alive. Or maybe something simple like breakfast for dinner tonight.
Yay! Well done. Fabulous. And you only just learned how to sing as well. That sounds fabulous. Well done to you. That was, of course, Rosie Smith, and that is her track, Breakfast for Dinner. Fabulous stuff. Right, so on today's show, we've been asking, will talking tough save the Labour Party? And according to our Twitter poll, 8% of you say yes. That means 92% of you say no, it won't save the Labour Party. I've also been asking, should we be forced to have water meters? And lots of you have been getting in touch with your views. Greg says, how is a water meter going to prevent water shortages with plenty of rain in this country? The problem is we have water companies that don't want to spend their profits on new water storage. Louis says, my water bill was £600-ish until I put a meter in. Now it's affordable at £200. Well, that's my take on it. Thank you so much to my panel, comedian Leo Kearse, and also former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire. Thank you so much. And of course, thank you to you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow at 4.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking a little drier and calmer, but only for a short while. Let's take a look at the details. Cloud will already begin to increase across southwest England this evening, with outbreaks of rain developing, winds easing for a few hours. Mild this evening with temperatures of 10 degrees Celsius. It will be drier this evening across the southeast and London, with the winds easing too, temperatures falling away over the coming hours. Over to Wales, and after a quiet few hours, cloud and rain will begin to move back in from the west. Winds will also increase. Turning chilly for a time this evening across the Midlands, with clear skies over Birmingham. Winds will fall light ahead of more unsettled weather moving in tonight. Temperatures hovering around 4 degrees Celsius. Any lingering rain, sleet and snow will soon clear away from northern England to leave a dry evening. Temperatures tumbling with some patchy frost and ice forming ahead of further rain tonight. Frost and ice also for a time across eastern Scotland, whilst in the west we could see cloud and rain beginning to move in from the Atlantic. Winds also increasing along the coasts. Turning increasingly wet across Northern Ireland this evening, with Belfast holding on to the driest weather for longest. Winds increasing from the west too, but staying on the mild side. Wet and windy weather with then sweep across the whole country as we go through tonight. Gales developing by morning, and that is how the weather is shaping up overnight and into tomorrow morning.
I'm Neil Oliver. You can join me live every Saturday evening for opinions and discussions about the week's top stories. There's also a smattering of history and archaeology and features that define our great British Isles. You'll hear my thoughts unfiltered, as well as those of my guests, and we don't always agree. And we want to hear from you too. Neil Oliver Live, Saturdays from 7 on GB News.